Seek God first and all of his righteousness, and all these things, additional things in your life, will be added unto you, and the things will fall into place. So the first object of our love, biblically, if we claim to be a Christian, is to make God number one. Who's number one? I liked it on Palm Sunday when Sue had all the Camp Calvary kids come in, and they were all saying, God's number one, God, and some had hands, that God is number one, if you remember, if you were here on Palm Sunday. God's got to be number one. It's not the Detroit Lions. It's not the Tigers. It's not the Minnesota Vikings. It's not the Green Bay Packers. God's got to be number one. Secondly, the object of our love is called to be our family and our neighbors. Summary of the law: love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbors as you love yourself. Paul says in Galatians, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of God. John, 1 John. Again, go home and read this book, 1 John. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possessions and sees his brothers in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in them? Dear children, then, let us not love with words or tongue, but with actions. Again, love prompts action. If you truly love, it's going to prompt you into action. So, dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with actions and in truth. This is then how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. So the love that we're called to have is to first off to God. It's second off for our family and our neighbors. It's for our spouses. It's for our children. And this one really, here's another verse here from 1 John. We love because he first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, yet he hates his brother, he is a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen can't love God whom he doesn't see. And he has given us his command. Whoever loves God must also love your brother and your sister. This one could be family and neighbors, in some respects almost divided up into two, because we have the love that we're called to have for those of us in the family, the DNA, this family. But there's also the love that we're called to have for the world outside of this place. This morning in the prayer time in my office, a couple of us were talking, and one was sharing about one of his employers, and just sharing some things about the employer. And afterwards, I said to him, is your employer a Christian or not? And he said, yeah. I said, well, that can open up a different door to be with that person. Because the reality is, we're in the same family then. You still have that relationship of employer-employee, but we're together because we're in the same family. The love that we're called to have for each other is that love that brings us into relationship with each other. It's the love, as I said with Sue up front, there's some people you want to hold close and dance with close. There's others in the family of God you want to maybe stand 2 or 3 feet away from. But you're still going to dance with them. And we're still going to love them. The simple little thing, when I see people walk out of church here, or if I go to a different church and visit a different church, and if people don't come up and talk to me or say anything to me, if I'm the stranger, I think, man, does this place have love or not? Kills me when somebody walks out of here and I'm greeting and I see somebody walk out and they sort of walk to the table, grab some food, look around, and then walk out the door. My heart just sinks because I think, people, are we love or not? Are we called to embarrass ourselves for the 10th time to say, hi, it's good to meet you again, and I forgot your name for the 10th time. I'm sorry. What's your name again? But that's okay. So the love that we're called to have is a love that comes from God that is called to be on each other. And the last one here is a tough one. The object of our love is also for our enemies. This is one I sort of jumped to earlier in the introduction. And I just mentioned to just keep that in your mind and thought that Jesus says, I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Here Jesus is saying, agape your enemies. Agape. But it's not the filio. It's not the story. It's not saying you got to bring them into your family. It's not saying that you got to have that good feelings for them. But you need to treat them with love and respect. Is it a loving thing that we as a society need to do when we have to incarcerate prisoners? It is. It's loving. Is it a loving thing that we do when you're a parent and you discipline your child? The word discipline is to make a disciple. We don't punish our kids. We discipline our kids to mold them. And that's a loving thing that we're called to do. So with those people that we struggle with, for that horrific situation in Cleveland, for those 2 young men in Boston, is there accountability for their action? Yes, totally. But can we, as Christians, give them accountability with some love from God because God so loved the world, the agape? Yes. Follow me with that? I know for some people it's like, no, throw the book at them, nuke them, get rid of them. Just nuke all of our enemies and we're done with it. It's like, no, that's not what this has to say. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for me. We like to grade sin. We say one sin's worse than the other sin. But while I was yet a sinner, Christ died for me to give me love. So too, I am called, you are called to know that love is known by the action that it prompts. Love is known by the action that it prompts. God's love for us sent His Son, Jesus Christ. Our love is called to be poured out into the lives of others. I love the little phrase that we have in the hallway by the office. Our hearts up to God, our hands out to others. Isn't that beautiful? As Christians, we're called to have our hearts up to God. Love God first with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. Have our hands out to others in love and support with them. And having that love being prompted in their lives. God is love, so says John. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. In this way, love is made complete, meaning love is prompted. You can see the action, the result of love. It's made complete among us so that we can have confidence in the day of judgment. We have that hope of the future. The hope. We hear the melody of the future, the day of judgment, because in this world we are like Him. We're living like Him right now in the present. Hearing the melody of the future, dancing by faith today, knowing that in fear there is no love, but perfect love casts out fear. We dance with each other in the love of Jesus Christ. So, I know it's Mother's Day, and I know I didn't specifically give all little tidbits of how to be a mother or the accolades of mothers. But the reality is this is called for all of us. Every one of us are called to love in a God-like agape way. To hear the melody of the future, the hope. To have the faith to dance to that melody today, now, as we dance in that loving relationship with each other. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, this morning I thank You for Your word.